So yesterday, as of the time of recording, we got some pretty interesting news in the fact that it quite literally came out of nowhere. And that is of a brand new Gundam series called Gundam, and yes, this is how it's pronounced, Gquuuuuux. And that title is, I guess, the first thing we should talk about, and it is very strange. Stranger than you would expect from a Gundam series, because if you look at the past titles that the various Gundam series have had over the past almost 50 years, they have generally not been all that strange. Usually they are either descriptions, more or less, of what the show is about. Look at the more recent ones. Iron-Blooded Orphans, The Witch from Mercury, some sort of explanation for what the show is going to be. Or it's like letters or numbers, G Gundam, Gundam X, Gundam Double Z, which is Double Zeta, but still. Even my favorite Gundam series of all time, Gundam 00, is just, 2 zeros. And in fact, that name was just a placeholder name that they ended up keeping and eventually finding a way to make sense of in the show. But still, the point is Gundam series don't typically have the most amazing titles, certainly serviceable titles that they make work, but not necessarily the most creative. This one is probably the most creative, I would say. Definitely the one that stands out the most because it is weird and it has way too many U's in there. And I'm not sure why they felt the need to spell it that way, but it certainly does make the title stand out. And I do think everything about this announcement is basically being designed to make this stand out and make this generate buzz. Because quite literally, prior to last night when this got revealed, we didn't even know this was coming. I don't think we had any concrete information about a new Gundam series, and certainly not anywhere near enough information to be expecting a drop of this much all at once. Because usually when something gets announced, what do you expect to get? A brief description, a key visual or two, and that's basically it. Enough to let you speculate, but not enough to really tell you too much. With this, we got multiple visuals, we got a full description of the plot, we have character names and character designs, we have the staff, we have voice actors, we have a whole promotional video for this already. This went from not existing to all of this stuff all at once. And it's a little bit overwhelming and it's surprising. And again, I think that was intentional. I think they very clearly chose not to trickle out this information so that it would be this big drop all at once and it would generate people talking about it, which is exactly what it's doing. On top of that, apparently they are going to take a few of these initial episodes. So apparently they've already got some of the episodes done, or at least a good chunk of the way done. They're going to take some of them, cut them together in some way, and do this theatrical promotional release in the middle of January. So that's soon. That's a month and a half away. Now, granted, we don't know when the show itself is going to start. We don't know when the actual episodes are going to release normally. But if they're already taking episodes and creating this promotional release for a month and a half away from now, I don't think it's out of the realm of possibility that this starts in April. Now, we don't know that. There is no confirmation. We don't even know technically if it's going to start next year. But I imagine if you're that far along already, it must be starting soon, right? I think it's perfectly possible and conceivable that this comes out in a few months. And that is crazy to go from nobody knowing this existed to now it's out. It really is insane, but that's what's going on. On top of that, because we have the characters, we have the staff, we have a description, we have a PV, there's a lot we can already discuss with this show. For example, the pedigree on this staff is certainly worth discussing. Not only is the director the guy who did Die Buster and the original FLCL, not only do you have one of the writers of Revolutionary Girl Utena working on this, you've got Hideaki Anno himself as one of the writers. They're pulling out all the stops to get big name people working on this. Now, there are a couple of potential conclusions we can draw from that information already. There is definitely going to be more of a Gainax/Trigger style to this. If you look at the character designs, you look at the actual preview we have, it doesn't really look like a Sunrise Gundam series. Now, part of that is because it's sort of like a joint production between Sunrise and Kara, which explains how Anno's involved, but it really, really looks like something Gainax would have made back in the day. Now, of course, Gainax doesn't functionally exist anymore, so you could say more of a Trigger thing, but it has that style to it. The characters, the vibe of the preview, it really doesn't look like Gundam. If you didn't know it was Gundam and you showed it to someone, they may not have thought it was Gundam. They probably would have thought it was some sort of new Trigger mecha show, but it's not. It's Gundam, and it really does stand out when you compare it to what you would normally expect character designs and even mech designs from a Gundam series to look like. But of course, because you have someone who was involved with Utena and literally the creator of Evangelion himself being involved in this, it does sort of suggest that maybe there might be a little bit of psychological mind trickery going on. Now, I'm not typically the biggest fan of that sort of thing. I know plenty of people are. I mean, obviously Evangelion is hugely influential and hugely beloved by a lot of people, but I'm not the biggest fan of that type of storytelling, and I am a little bit concerned that with these two people involved, it will sort of drift in that direction, but that's probably a little bit premature. We don't know that for sure, and that doesn't mean it's going to be handled in the same way, so it makes me cautious, but I'm not ready to write this show off or anything just because of that. It's just a concern I'm going to have in the back of my mind as we learn more and more about this series. Now, as far as what the actual plot is, we actually don't know that much, all things considered. We do know the characters for the most part, and we have a pretty bare bones description. So the main character is on a space colony, big shocker for a Gundam series, and gets involved with sort of this underground fight club type of Gundam duels, which is interesting, and it's not entirely unique because you could say, hey, well, G Gundam involved fights, and even Witch from Mercury, the previous Gundam series, involved duels. It was a little bit different, and it ultimately was not as big a part of the show as I think people expected it to be, but this is a little bit different because it's like underground, hidden away fights, and presumably there's going to be more of a edge to it, so to speak. And eventually the description tells us that the main character will encounter someone else who is a mysterious person who gets involved with a new mysterious Gundam that the authorities don't know about. And I imagine, like every other Gundam series, there will be some political aspect to this. I don't think it will completely go away with that because, it's Gundam. Even things like G Gundam, that still had politics involved, even if it was, very different from what other Gundam series had been up until that point. It was also the first non-universal century Gundam, so that obviously was a big difference to what came before it. I do think that inevitably there will be political stuff. They're already kind of planting the seeds in this description of there being some sort of wider political conflict going on, presumably involving this new mysterious Gundam. But that all being said, the description, the style, the character designs, the vibe of this, the way it was announced has all come off as fairly different, fairly unique from what you would expect from Gundam, and I guess what you would expect from any anime announcement. Because again, it is really weird that we got all of this out of the blue all at once. So there's going to be a lot to speculate about regarding this show, even more than I am doing in this video. But, this information just came out and I wanted to put this together. So yeah, this is really interesting, and I am optimistic about this because it is so different. But again, there are some things that have me a little bit concerned, but I would expect that we probably will see this sooner than we ever would have thought if they're already going to be putting together some sort of special compilation release for Japanese theaters. So it'll be interesting to learn more about this as the months go on, and I think we will be seeing this show come out a lot sooner than anyone would have expected. Let me know in the comments down below what you think about this, about Gquuuuuux, about the title, about the people involved, about what your expectations will be, about if you're, as surprised as I am that we got all this information out of the blue all at once. And, are you looking forward to this? Do you want to see a little bit more from this, more PVs, more information? Yeah, just what are your general thoughts on this so far? I know it's very fresh and there's a lot to take in, but what do you think? Thank you so much for watching. Like and subscribe if you enjoyed. And until next time, take care, everyone. Look forward to the next video.